Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
I can hear you loud and clear, Coach Jay. Welcome back to At the Buzzer.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, the goal of this session is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity. We want to see how we could take advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Top Step performance coach since June of 2023, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep since April of 2023. I've been involved in the futures trading industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share some of my experiences, some knowledge, and hopefully help you become a better trader.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for that, Coach Paul. You are all our chat, our audience. Thank you for joining us as always. And let's get into the markets. We had a ton of movement going on today in the markets. We'll cover it all here. Westy in the chat says NQ anchored VWAP left 3-minute range. It was a great short when revisited. What is that white line? Man, I love to see that stuff in the chat. Coach Paul and I were just talking about, hey, the markets are doing some of the things that we talk about day in and day out here. And, it's our job as traders to execute it. But hopefully, and we can see it in some of the chat. It's hopefully what we've covered over the last year repeatedly and added to and talked about, the potential for markets doing some of the things we expect is helping you with your trading journey. Again, it is our job to execute it. Let us know how you did today. Are you up on the day? Are you down on the day? Anything that you're taking notes on to say, hey, you know what? I can use this as information going forward. There's a ton of it out there. We appreciate you all joining as always. As far as news goes today, we don't have any we didn't have many planned numbers. We did have the S&P Services PMI come out, manufacturing PMI as well. But big news was Powell speaking today, all of the Fed speakers, and then of course we had the president speaking as well. Typing in that audio into TopstepTV during the day, kind of watching the market's response to it. It really looks like the market's consolidated while the president was speaking, got selling off after Powell was done with his speech. But anything you see from the news, Coach Paul?
No, it's a lot of, someone put it out here best. A lot of talkers messing with price action today. That was the news. There was a lot of talk, but nothing direct news that really would affect the long-term position of the equities market.
Nothing there. Just honestly, it just felt like some technical moves across the board. So we'll take a look at that. See how our traders did in the chat.
Here, we have one water fasting results. Traded worse as the day progressed. I don't know if you journal, but it would help to understand what was going through your emotional mindset. I'm sure that wasn't your plan, but emotionally, were you chasing losses, trying to make up for it? And it's important to understand and register what your mindset was. So over time, the more you do that, you can identify when you're slipping into tilt. So take this as an opportunity to improve.
Absolutely. And with that, Coach Paul, traded worse as the day progressed. Sometimes the day progresses into a different market structure than we were successful with early, right? Where we might see a sell-off and then the market ranges for 3 hours, but we're not, our brain maybe doesn't realize the switch in market structure, or at least in market sentiment for the intermediate time frame, and we think we're still in a ranging or a trending environment, but we're really in a range, and you're trying to trade breakouts in the middle of that 3-hour consolidation that we had in the equities. So pay close attention to what the market is telling us, for sure. We got Brad Sims up 990 in a combine, minus 102 in an XFA. right? Not too bad on the XFA managed loss. Nice job in the combine. Genius Genie up 220, trading the range, chasing to get the last 200 TDM and lost it all, right? We talk about trading with a monetary focus. Don't want to try to do that, even though it seems counterintuitive. You're trading, the last thing you want to be thinking about is money, um, because there's a monetary component to every trade that you make. I'm just focused solely on how much money I'm making on any given trade. I'm not listening to what the market is saying. I'm listening to what I need, and unfortunately, the market doesn't care what we want. So, you know, review that. If you're close to passing a combine, and you're a couple $100 away. What shouldn't happen is, I'm close to that finish line, and then I completely blow the accounts. We're not managing risk at that point, right? We're
gambling.
Gambling and tied to a goal. And we're basically saying, if I don't achieve this goal, then I don't want anything. But let's take a look at the markets here. We have 36 different markets we can trade with Topstep accounts. And today, to the downside, we had soybean meal down 1.11 per. Oh, nope. Did that backwards. Cattle down 0.55%. The NASDAQ down 0.67%. And soybean meal, our biggest percentage mover to the downside, down 1.11%. To the upside, we had natural gas up 2.07%. Crude oil up 2.14%. And platinum, our biggest percentage mover to the upside, failing just before making an all-time high in platinum, 4.46% to the upside. Huge move in platinum. I think at one point we were up 5.5%, 5.75%, and a really nice sell-off after that. We're definitely going to take a look at that chart. To talk about our big four, we already mentioned crude up 2.14%, the S&P down 0.53%, gold up 0.57%, and the NASDAQ down 0.67%. I have a 30-minute chart. Actually, let's go to the daily. Daily chart up here, Coach Paul, in the NASDAQ. What are you seeing here?
Well, we have a possible double top. Inside yesterday's range, almost identical. We haven't seen that. And we got balance up at all-time highs. Let's big point. Well, is the yesterday's low. We didn't violate it today, but it also was the 200 moving averages right here. So this is the first time we've had a good challenge here in a couple of weeks to the buying. But that does one day does not change the trend. But we definitely found some balance here. Can it turn? That's why I'm looking yesterday's low, or someone pointed out yesterday's value area, where we found support today. If we violate that tomorrow, I think we can push down a little more. But otherwise, up and to the right.
Up and to the right for sure. Who just asked? Is this it, gentlemen? Are we finally getting a pullback? You hear JD all the time. Every Tuesday when we do the opening call, he says, "Happy Turnaround Tuesday." Here is Tuesday's price action. Today's Tuesday. Here's last Tuesday's price action. Here is September 9th. September 9th was not a turnaround Tuesday. But not surprised to see this little bit of a pullback. Is the trend over? I'm not going to be the first one to say that. But it was a pullback day after seeing, all-time highs yesterday, trade above a major level, 25,000. Not surprised to see a little bit of a pullback. So let's go to the 30-minute chart. And really, I just want to get to the New York session. Overnight was flat. Coming into the opening call, Hogue and I do the analysis, and both of us were kind of just like, hey, this overnight range really didn't give us a whole lot to work with, right? We don't see any overnight inventory. There's no longs, there's no shorts. VWAP was in the middle of that range, and we kind of just got glued to 25,000. But that is somewhat of a sign. Now, with this was a 50-point overnight range, Coach Paul.
Yep.
The daily ATR in the NASDAQ is 250 points. And coming into the New York session, we said this during the opening call, that there are when we looked at the daily ATR, it said 250 points in the NASDAQ. And, Hogue and I, we talked about it and we said, if we only used 50 of those 250, there's 200 points available somewhere in this market. We just have to let the market decide where that's going to be. The daily range today, high to low range in the NASDAQ today, was 244 points. So the market decided to spend all of that range to the downside. And someone had asked during the opening call, how do you look at the daily ATR? For me, that's kind of, and I know, Coach Paul, you use it for your pivots as well. Using that daily ATR number for the potential move in the market, right? We saw a little bit of an extension above 25,000, but again, and only a 50-point overnight range. We didn't have to get to an average range day, but we were going to see an extension somewhere. And today it was just to the downside. Let's go back to the 30-minute chart here. Hopefully what I just said there makes sense and didn't confuse it. But
Well,
there was a ton of potential coming into the New York session today.
well, there was. I like the way you put there was an average potential of another 200 points.
Right.
That isn't predicting, but it's giving an idea of the potential of today's range. Now, it's an average range. And that average range is another word for it is volatility. So I will give you this, that options markets measure that. So it's an important data point. And understanding that can help you get to expected ranges within reason. Like you said, coming out of last night with a 50-point range, there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we just take away the candles and just used the VWAP, we had an idea what happened last night. It would be nothing on a volume basis. So coming into this morning,
pretty flat overnight. But coming into this morning, I'm going to switch this over to regular trading hours. Man, what a move. Let's go down to a shorter time frame chart. VWAP is going to be this blue line on my charts here. Let's go down to a 3-minute, and we opened up pretty much right at 25,000, Coach Paul.
Yep. Big, a number of importance.
Because everyone who's trading the NASDAQ is going to be aware that we are trading at this major level, right? 25,000, big fat round number. I call it a super psychological level, right? For me, super psych level is anything like 25,000, 24,000. I think we're getting some audio issues from you, Coach Paul. I'll fix that on my side, hopefully. But any whole number level like that, and we'll see a couple of examples of this. In order for us to continue higher, especially if that major level is right below all-time highs, we're going to need to see some convinced volume above it. In this case, you just look at 25,000 today, and VWAP from the New York session, VWAP, there was no convinced buying above 25,000 at all today. It never ticked above that 25,000 level, which maybe that isn't an indication to go short right away, but it's definitely saying, hey, if you're buying it, you're with the weaker hands buyers here that are not holding this market up. We got some urgency. Price left that 3-minute opening range pretty early. VWAP did as well, and we just never looked back.
How's my voice now?
Sound pretty good.
All right. Now, once again, that urgency was apparent right off the first 6 minutes. If we looked at a 5 minute, whatever range you're looking at, now let's look at the 5 minute.
All right, here we go. Five. I mean, it's even cleaner, to be honest.
So if we look at the 1 minute, what we're getting is urgency on different time levels. Something to watch because that's where the volume's coming. And it's a tell. Think of it in poker. You have an opening hand, and all of a sudden, one of the players is raising the bet every time um, it gets a chance, or she. That's a tell. There's something that you have something in your hand. You can either fade it or get out. This is a tell. Been noticing that lately. You look at the 1, 3, 5, and 10 minute. If they're all in
Concert.
harmony,
Yeah.
you might want to pay attention. So we had that today, and I mean it was one directional. So one of the things, looking at that, check it out. If they're in harmony, don't fight the Fed. This is the old saying. Don't fight the flow.
Yeah, pretty heavy flow. And then we did consolidate, right? The market's maybe watching the president, waiting for Powell here, consolidating. And then, in the second half of the day, where I'm gonna pull up let's take a look at this volume indicator on the bottom of the charts here, because we consolidated for 3 hours, right? That was a tough market to trade in. Especially if you were looking for what ended up being the eventual breakdown, you could have gotten chopped up in this range. A ton of below average volume chop in this range, but we can see once the volume starts to pick up a little bit, then we eventually do make that second leg down. But this was tough, right? So if you caught on to this trade early on, and maybe you took profits and thought about, hey, how do I get back into it? This market turned into a 50 point, maybe a little bit larger, maybe about a 50 point range in the NASDAQ for 3 hours. So if you are that trader that said, hey, I had some profits early and then my trading got worse, the market condition changed midday. And then we got back to trending. But that was a tough consolidation to either sit through or trade through. I know Dakota was on fast markets. He was looking to take shorts for a continuation, but the volume slowed down a little bit, right? Through waiting for Powell and whatever else it was. Once it picked back up again, then we made that second leg. So pay attention to changing road conditions.
Yeah, very well put.
As they say.
If we now let's switch that to the 30-minute. So now, what's the 30-minute? We see that urgency at the high of the range.
Yep.
That's another reason not to fight the flow. And where did we end up going to?
What is that white line, chat? There is a market. Out of all 36 markets that we have, there is a market that I would almost guarantee once a day there is a market trading at the 200 moving average on the 30-minute chart. And today it was the NASDAQ, it was the S&P. And again, just putting the puzzle together. Do you hold for this entire trade? Maybe, maybe not. But rejection at a super psychological level, no volume trading above it. We didn't really have any overnight inventory, so there is 200 points available, and then that 200 point move puts us almost right at the 200 moving average. It's like, take a piece of it. I was telling Coach Paul in the green room before we got on here that I want to. There's still a part of me, and I know that it's a hard thing to do as a trader. I want to catch as many of these points as I can, right? Because that entire puzzle is something that you can put together before it happens. And what a bounce from there, right? You could have waited to buy it, Coach Paul, if you were, and you sometimes you say, I only want to take one side of the market, you could have taken that one side and had a great day today buying off that 200 moving average in the NASDAQ.
Yeah. Now let's look what it looks like for tomorrow off that 200.
For tomorrow, yeah.
For tomorrow, watch it tonight. We hold it. We could turn around and run right back up. We are in an uptrend. With that said, we have identical ranges at all-time highs. We have a possibility of a double top. So let's mark that level. One of the things is we're having, a distribution where we had higher volume at the lows today. If we let's put a volume profile for today's action. And we're under the volume point of control.
Up at 24,393, 24,940, we'll call it.
So we're to me, we're in a decisive part here, stage. I think with that kind of action where most of the volume was traded, we're traded underneath it. That is not a healthy sign. That yesterday's low is going to be an important level with the 200 moving average. If we start moving under that, I think we can pick up some momentum to the downside. Something to watch.
Thing to watch for sure. Let's take a look at the S&P really quick. Similar story in the S&P, pretty tight overnight range. Really nothing to talk about there, about a 10-point range overnight. And then if we do the same, put the same puzzle pieces together, the S&P ATR on the daily is 56 points. In the overnight session, we used 10 of those points. So that means there's 50 points available, and this is a 50-point move to the downside from that consolidation. So I think we hit pretty close to a daily ATR move. 52 points high to low in the S&P today. The daily ATR is 56. Again, rejecting up at a major level near these all-time highs. 67.50 is right there as well. And from the time we opened up for the New York session, no volume traded higher. So price did. That's an early indication that, there are not, at least right now, any convinced buyers. What was interesting about the S&P, I saw JD mention this in the chat. There were a couple of thousand lots. So yesterday during Power Hour, there was a 2,600 lot on the offer that got filled in the S&P. I don't remember exactly what price that was. But then today, what we saw was a 1,000 lot on the offer, Coach Paul, at 67.40 while Powell was speaking. They basically said, I don't care, right? Or I know where this market is going, or I have enough volume to say where this market is going. 67.40, you can see where that got filled. This is while Powell was speaking, and this is why I love reading order flow, because we had one at 67.40, then another one at 67.30, I believe it was. Just putting these as green lines on my charts, and you can see when 67.40 got filled, no follow through to the upside. Someone did have to buy it, right? No follow through to the upside, and just a really nice sell off. And I think the lowest one we saw was around the 67, 17, 67, 16 in that area. But 1,000 lot just selling the market off. And
well, since you mentioned that, but we look at the half hour, that was the highest. We look at the highest volume was the low.
Yep.
We have the possibility of a J trade.
Yes, we do.
And I think bouncing off the 200. So let's watch that tonight.
Let's watch that for sure. The high that high volume candle Coach Paul is talking about, and that's an interesting one to look at because normally the highest volume 30-minute candle is the close, which in this case it was as well. But that's 140,000 contracts traded in a 30-minute candle, and that's an anomaly, right? That sticks out compared to some of the other, right? Especially for that time of day, that one sticks out. So the high of that candle is 67.2075. So keep that line on my charts for sure. All right. 60 freaking 40, JD. All right. Let's take a look at the Dow, which made an all-time high today and sold off. Where did it sell off to? What is that white line?
The line of demarcation.
New all-time high in the Dow, 47,055. And I want to take a look, similar to what we were looking at in the NASDAQ, right? When we push into these major levels, 47,000, let's take a look at what volume does once we tag 47,000. Trades above it just a little bit for that time frame, right? For the candle that tested 47,000, we had a little bit of volume trade above it. For the volume for the entire day, it was well below that, right? So price went up and traded above it, but volume for the entire day stayed below 47,000. When we talk about, maybe looking to call the top in a uptrending market, it's not an easy game to play, but when you see market reactions at major levels, those can be your signs, right? So if you want to short this, it's almost don't touch the trade until we tag 47,000 and then you make your read from there, because then you get to see what that extension looks like. Are we always going to stop at a level like this? We're not. We'll take a look at platinum that didn't stop at a major level at all, or at a whole number level. But in this case, the Dow did. That volume started to slow down. You can see the VWAP for the day start to turn, flatten out a little bit. Do I know that it's going to go all the way back to the 200 moving average? Don't know anything, but that's a nice spot to start to look for a turn when that volume slows down above a major level. Rich, you did not miss gold. We'll get to it in a second here. And then similar story for the Russell. The Russell traded above 2,500, new highs of the year in the Russell, 25, 10, 30. Then what did volume do once we got there, Coach Paul? Slow down again.
Well, Russell, said if we looked at the urgency in the selling in S&P and NASDAQ.
Yep.
Let's look at the Russell on the opening.
Buy it now.
It was this is, and we got a 2-to-1 off of that. And I think the Dow too. So, even at the Dow at the 2-to-1 and it stops, Russell just stopped.
Yep.
But it was weighed down by the other indices. I look at them as different animals. I didn't take the sell in the S&P and the NASDAQ because I'm not looking to sell it. But I'm looking to buy it. And this one, and the buy was in the Russell.
Yes, it was.
And then it just slowed down. There was no volume. So just another, each market I look at in their own space. There were buyers here for the Russell early. There were sellers in the NASDAQ and the S&P early. There was buying in the Dow early. Since I've started with you, Coach, I never traded the market early.
Yeah.
I've done a complete 180. Because if you can measure volume with it, then you can find a place. What I have to say is you can be wrong early, be wrong cheap, or be right early and get a 2-to-1. And we on the opening, I never did that before. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Coach Paul. Thank you for bringing my attention to the 200 moving average. It is a target for most of my analysis in the opening call. About half of it comes from where we are in relation to that 200 moving average. So I appreciate that. Always something to learn. Always something to learn. We have a question here from Guillermo. I want to answer this one. Do you feel that these are healthy conditions to trade minis? Um, it really depends, Guillermo. I think more so that's a question of your account balance. Can your account balance facilitate trading minis? But if we're just talking about market conditions themselves, I do think, and what can we compare it to? What was happening earlier in the year? Let's take a look at the daily ATR in the NASDAQ. And Guillermo, you can let me know which market you're trading. But let's take a look at the daily ATR in the NASDAQ. During March and April, we had average daily ranges at the high of 887 points in the NASDAQ. That was completely an unhealthy market condition to be trading minis for most people, right? There were huge spreads in the market. There were times where, we were talking about 30, 40, 50 tick spreads in the NASDAQ, which is just insane, right? Some people are trading with 50 tick stops, and that was the spread on some days. That daily ATR is a quarter, almost maybe a third, probably closer to a quarter of what it was in April. And if we can look at historical average true ranges, we're pretty low right now. So this is a healthier environment than it was earlier this year for sure, right? You heard everyone on Topstep TV during February through June, pretty much, saying to scale down, slow down. I think now is probably a time where if you're more comfortable trading a little bit more size, the market conditions facilitate that as well. But that's always going to be a function of your account balance at the end of the day. And there's a lot you can do with trading micro. We're seeing Dakota only trade micros right now for this month, and he's having a hell of a month. So I think it really depends.
Yeah. And also looking at your your execution time frame. So if we look at the 5-minute in the NASDAQ, and we look at the average true range at the open.
I'm going to remove the extended trading hours and just go regular trading hours.
Great idea.
17 points, 16 points.
So 17 points on average. I like to use, for me, my risk is 2 ATRs. So that would be 34 points. Let's just say it's 30 to make it easy.
Yep.
So 60 points. On a micro, it's $120. Right?
Right.
On a mini, and this is the 5-minute chart.
This is a 5-minute. Yep.
It's $1,200. I don't believe there's many accounts that can warrant $1,200 risk in 5 minutes.
Right.
And reality, because things can change that quick. It's not exact, but it gives you an idea of what level it's vibrating on. And we just said, Coach Dakota is using micros and killing it.
Yep.
Could he be killing it if one way we could think, well, if he was doing minis, he'd be that much more. But it's not, because there's trades you have to abandon when there was some heat. Because in our front of our mind, we're like, oh, if I just had more on the winner, or we used to call it moron. It'll seduce you into some bad decisions, because it's easy to look back and it was what's called resulting, like, wow, I could have done 10 there. But in that span, against some heat, it's 10 times. You might get blown out, or you might not be able to hold it. Get to a level where you're comfortable. What I'm saying is, what you get into a point where you have to win, you're done. I mean, because then you're relying purely on good luck. So,
Completely forgetting
great
the fact that there's
question.
bad luck.
Yeah, great question. My answer to that is no, it's not, unless you have, wow, 50,000 in equity.
There you go.
But
Genius
you
Genie,
don't
that
have
should
to.
answer your question there.
All right.
Genius Genie had a question, Coach Paul. What balance should you use trading minis? And you just said 50K, right? Some people are going to look at that and say, "What 50K? I'm trading. I got a $4,500 drawdown with this XFA that I'm in." We saw Braden. I keep talking about Braden. He's going to be back on air soon. He was trading a live account with Topstep last week, trading micros, and yeah, he'll get into 15 micros sometimes. $120,000 balance in that account, and he's still trading micros.
There you go.
So, you know, uh, all about perspective. Are we trying to rush the process by getting into minis? Can you get to the same destination probably faster trading smaller? Probably can. We've used that speed limit example before, but if I drive to Coach Paul from New York going 120 miles an hour, there's a high probability I don't get to Chicago. All right. Anything else on the equities, Coach Paul?
That's it.
All right. Dave says he would not have that trading just micros. A lot of his trading, he did trade micros, and yeah, he copy traded accounts and things like that. But again, who cares about where he is with the account? What is he doing sustaining that account? Most people's mindset would be, hey, I have 100 grand. I want to trade 20 minis now. Right. But we're seeing somebody with a large account balance sustain an account by trading micros and have some pretty good days. Also, a lot of times what we see happen, Coach Paul, is when, Coach Paul, you get a trader on your VIP team or in the chat and they say, hey, I only have $500 left in my drawdown. How do I get out of this? You tell them to trade smaller. What do we see happen a lot? They scale down, they trade with the micros, and then they recover the accounts, right? So if you just traded that way to start, maybe you do get to that balance, right? You never know, right? We hear people say all the time, oh, it's too slow. How am I ever going to make any money trading micros? You might actually be able to hold on to your trades and see way more profit than, see profit, take profit on your trades.
Well, B. Chapman, micros and large accounts are just more comfortable, in my opinion. You had a great word there, comfortable. Now, if you're being comfortable means you can make decisions under pressure. If your risk or your size is too big, you're going to be very, very challenged to hold on through the turn.
Yep.
And maybe you can, but then you're relying on being a very small percentage of people. And even then, you don't get the chance if you get wiped out because your size was too big, but you were comfortable with it, but your account wasn't. So the ability to manage your account that Topstep is looking for. They're not looking for people who can get lucky. So understand that. I'm not saying you can't, but you better have a plan in there to handle that size. And then even then you have to do it over time.
Yeah, 100%. Dave just said it. I let go of winners because of fear of high leverage, right? If you just remove that fear and then just hold on to your trades, you probably see more profit than trying to it's like somebody who has like a bodybuilding goal, Coach Paul, and they're just like, okay, I haven't been to the gym for a year, but I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna lift 500 pounds, and then I'm gonna hit all my bodybuilding goals. No, you're not. You're probably gonna get hurt.
Not probably.
Yeah, I'm just gonna lift all the weight at once instead of consistently over time. It doesn't work like that, and we're kind of doing the same thing here when we over leverage.
It's a great discussion, and I don't,
Yeah.
but to understand that is where you can be in an area of comfort to execute a trading plan. If you're in a hurry, I don't ever want to be in a hurry.
Yeah.
I'll go. You want to be quick. I'll quote one of the greatest coaches of all time, John Wooden. Be quick, don't hurry. And when you first hear that, I was like, what do you mean? I didn't really don't understand it. When you're in a hurry, you can get reckless. When you're quick, you're under control. So chew on that. But you're going to trade at the size you want to trade. But if you're struggling, and you're doing large size, you might want to learn from that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And Dave, I see your follow-up. Let's get to some markets. We'll come back to this. Good conversation right now. Gold made new all-time highs today, 38.2460 new all-time high in gold. Then we saw a little bit of a pullback, Coach Paul. What are we seeing here on the daily chart in gold?
All-time highs. It's just like, just repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yep.
Now, we did get some, a little wick there, buying stopped up high, but it's to be expected, but there's nothing in there to say this is topped. We need more information. Let's look at last night, what happened last night. And starting at 8 p.m. Central. Why? We've noticed that's when Shanghai opens up.
Shanghai open, that's when our volume starts for the day. And pretty nice buying opportunities here.
Here's another one about the gold. Now we'll talk about proper sizing. If you can't be wrong in gold if you're trading big gold with a $4,000 account, a $3,000 account. Why? This is let's just go down. Let's look at the half hour. What is the ATR? Which is the average range?
10, anywhere from 7 to 10 points. $10
through the day.
Yep.
Another half an hour. That's 700 to 1,000. And you don't know if that average is going to double in your at your time. So if you're trading one or two large gold, you have to be right. But it's absolutely giving great opportunity. That's why trading some micros here fits most accounts here. The 100-ounce gold was created in like 1974 when the COMEX had gold futures started. I believe it was 74, early 70s. Gold was like $75 an ounce.
Yeah.
All right.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
You're no less of a brave soldier of trading micro. It fits. So anyway, great movement last night. But boy, did it stop on a dime.
Yes, it did. So 3800s was that major level. If you were watching slow markets last night, Dakota and I were talking about getting in longs in gold, looking for 3778 on a pullback. We got it right after we closed slow markets. But the reason I was kind of looking at that level, there was a decent amount of volume traded in this range right here. It was 79s down to 76. A decent amount of volume traded there yesterday. So looking for that area to hold, there was about 400 contracts that traded in a second to the buy side over here. Came down, we swept it, and just pushed right back up. And those 78s, depending on where your risk was a nice spot to start to look. Got another major psych level here, 3,800. Volume didn't necessarily trade above that until later in the day, and then we get back and forth price action. But a really nice trade in gold, a two-sided trade. I don't know what that sell-off was later in the day. It got pretty aggressive there, where we had this high volume, and we never closed above it on the 30-minute here, Coach Paul. This is 9 a.m. Central Time. High volume. Traders, if you identify high volume on your charts, what I like to do is attach a VWAP to it. They might tell us range. Look at this range here, where all this volume traded, VWAP flattened out. You could have bought it off 3,800s here and sold it against 33.17s up here for a pretty nice trade. CFT says, I told you. The short, were you talking about the short? That short was a nice trade, CFT. But let's go ahead, Coach Paul.
Let's look at the 3-minute. And at those highs, if we had exhausted buying.
I mean, yeah, so at the high of the day, this was our highest volume candle right here. Closed below it, never looked above it.
And it's something I look for when I'm seeing highs now.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I want, if I'm long, ideally, I'm long.
Right. I'm going to take profits.
Time to take, I don't necessarily want to get short, but it's something to look for. And then boy, it came into that point. But yeah, gold is still a great trade, giving opportunity on both sides of the market. But let's look at the half hour and see where the moving averages are.
Jared, that's a good question. When's the last time you shorted gold? I think I've taken a short scalp in gold for sure. When's the last time I thought gold was in a downtrending market? It's been years. We still get some short trade potential. But here we are with those moving averages sitting right at the 50 moving average, Coach Paul, in the 30-minute, 37.96.
Interesting. Not a very strong close, to say the least.
Nope.
But this is the first time we've closed under that 50 moving average in, I think, a week.
Has been a while. Yeah, September 19th, and today's the 23rd, so a couple of days, about 4 days.
Yeah, so we're still above the 200, but well, I think that was one big sell. And that must have been on some news. But looking forward, we're still in a bull market. I personally don't want to take any shorts. That's me.
Good stuff there. I want to take a quick look at platinum just because it ran 5% today. We talked about this. Did we talk about platinum yesterday? I can't remember if we did or not. Either way. We talked about silver. There we go. All the metals. Platinum rejecting at that all-time high, did not make a new all-time high. 15.1140 is that all-time high. We stopped a little bit short of it, and there's that high volume reversal. There, Coach Paul, we closed below it, and a nice move here. Now, I mentioned platinum during the opening call, and the first thing I said was I want to see the market's reaction at 1,500 because we hadn't traded 1,500 for a little while here. But if we look at when we tagged 1,500, could that have been a reversal pattern here? Maybe. You could have taken this one, right? If we look at, okay, that's the high volume for the day. We did technically close below it. That's probably a losing trade right there. But the same idea, right? Looking at these markets at major levels to the upside or the downside and then reading that flow. This here is a loss. It's a losing trade if you take this. I'm short. Maybe my risk goes above the high. Maybe I go 2 ATRs. Either way, there's no way I'm avoiding getting stopped out of this trade, right? So we do have to show losing trades as well, but the same concept applies. Where okay, that one didn't work, but almost a half an hour later, we get another high volume candle, another push into what is the all-time high, which is probably a more important major level than just the arbitrary 1500. We get high volume that cannot take out that all-time high. We close below that, another push of it. Here's another trade that you can take. Now, here's where, Coach Paul, you ever get stopped out of a trade and then take it again?
If it fits into, yeah, if it fits into a plan.
Yep.
Now, in this one, I'm not looking to sell it. I'm looking for a place to get out of the long for me.
Yeah.
But if you were looking to sell it, yeah, if that's what your plan was and you had good risk, now, how many times can you do that? Well, you
Yeah.
have to have a budget. If you're just doing it until you're right, you might run out of money.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, I can do that if my size on the first trade was correct, where I still have some ammo. But this is where it can get
You get tricky.
the risk of going until
Yep, for sure.
I got to get it back and look for the same thing and get blindsided.
Yeah, this is where it might be a good time to have a hey, if I try to trade 2 or 3 times and it doesn't work, that's where I cut myself off. As long as I'm still under the risk, because this could keep just grinding up and giving you false signals. But in this case, that was a pretty nice reversal here. All right, let's take a look at. Is there much to talk about in crude oil today? Crude oil is just going range to range. Low of the range to the high of the range. Go ahead.
If we look at it from last night, we see what we've been talking about London. So we drifted lower last night. London came in, said, time to go to the top end of that range.
Yep. What a move. What a move here.
Inside of that, and we know it's in a range, and I'm not a range trader, but I'm finding some of the best trades I've had have been in gold. I mean, black gold,
in crude,
Texas tea. So we've seen this a few times, but last night we drifted lower. We had some urgency on the opening. There was a 2-to-1 there. Now, as the book gets passed from Asia to Europe, let's see what that opening brings us. Yeah, I mean, 2-to-1. And just, it's been a great
trading market.
And that's not something I say much.
Yeah. There was a question from Balaji on crude oil. The house account did take a crude oil long here on the opening range. Let's take a look at that trade. Crude opens at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Here was that candle. Closed above it. And Balaji's question was, the house account took the long in crude oil today and was short of the take profit and then reverse, but the position was left to play out. How do we balance comments like see profit, take profit, or letting your trades work out? So great question here. The house account took this long, got a 2-to-1 on this trade because the risk was, I think the risk was right down below 62.90s. Got a 2-to-1 at the high and didn't take this trade off. I may take a little bit of responsibility for this. And normally what we try to do is manage some of the position at a 2-to-1 and take some profits off. I was on air with JD and I said, okay, if we're going to take some profit on this, are we comfortable just with the way crude oil has been trading, holding it for the highs of the range? because it has been such a range-bound market trading from one side to the other. I think we did take some of it off. We got a pullback, and it was never invalidated. It was, I think this one was a case of letting the market trade to a profit target, seeing if we could take out those 64s. Ultimately, I think the position was closed towards the end of the day, but it really is a question of your trade management. You know, if you have an idea for where the market is going to go, but you don't watch how it gets there, uh, does it still happen? Right? There is a trader who's, you might see a little bit of a green on your trade, but you're watching it. And in this pullback, you take your position off. You weren't watching it and you just let the market profit target. And again, this is not a way I trade. I usually manage most of my day trades. If it's a longer term position, I'll let it work. But most of my day trades, I'm actively managing. I know where the market is. But in this case, it was just letting the market trade to a profit target that you had, and accepting the risk. Anything else you got on crude, Coach?
Let's look at the daily.
Let's take a look at the daily. Put some moving averages on there.
I just wanted to see when that 50 and the 20 and the 200 are all in the same place. I'm going to mark that day. I'm going to buy straddles. It's going to move out of this range.
It has to eventually, right?
Yeah, most likely to the upside. Because are we still record shorts?
The last time I asked JD about that, he said, he didn't see any update on that position. I know the open interest has been kind of back and forth. Hogue did say this morning that we lost open interest on this move to the upside yesterday. So maybe, I would think so. I know the president's looking for crude oil to be short, lower than this, under $60. I think he said 55 was his target. We saw what happens when he said you better buy stocks.
Yep.
So we will see. We will see. CFT asked in the chat, and anything we say here is not investment advice or trading advice, for educational purposes only. Would I short the NASDAQ again off of 880s? It really depends. It really depends. We are in an area in the NASDAQ where we're bouncing off of this 200 moving average, which could mean our next leg higher. What I will say is that the NASDAQ has some work to do above those 880s, right? We framed out that high volume candle. If we trade up the same way in my mind, if we trade up to 880, the same way we traded up to 25,000 and there is no volume above it, then there's potential for a short back into this range. If we trade up to 880 and volume is trading above it, I'm not fading that. I'm not going to fade that. So it really does depend how the market trades tomorrow. All right, Coach Ball. Any other markets you want to talk about? Anything on your scouting report? Haven't asked that in a little bit. Anything you got on your scouting report?
Euro currency, we've been talking about it, had a nice little bounce today. I think it's it held the 200 well. On the daily, we've had this little break holding the 20. We're above all the averages and some nice movement on the half hour. We're holding up at the higher levels. It's starting to gain momentum. This is this feeling. I'm looking to buy it. Obviously, it was a nice little buy above the 200. It held, but I think there's a feeling there's a kind of a currency war going on. And my experience tells me we could get a rip. And it would be the upside in the euro currency. That's what I'm looking for.
Awesome stuff. I cannot forget. We got some platform updates here in Topstep X. And Coach Robert wanted me to share. If you are looking at or looking for how to trade with the OCO brackets, Coach Robert put together an auto OCO brackets for Topstep X 5 minutes or less. That video series that we have on YouTube. It's being edited right now and it is going out today. So if you are curious on how to use the new position management features, Coach Robert is doing that class. Well, he's doing the video and he's actually doing a class right now in Discord. Started about 10 minutes ago. So let's wrap here so you guys can get over to that class if you want to. Coach Robert doing a session on how to trade with the OCO brackets. Great feature to use, great tool to use, especially if you want to put orders out there and just let them work. We have not always had OCO orders the way we have them right now. Different, and people say that, well, we've always had this. Join the session and see what the difference is, because there's a clear difference in the order management. Or if you can't join it, make sure you watch the recording. Watch the recording, but Coach Robert is going to explain those for us. Coach Paul, anything you got before we go?
Nothing else. Once again, plan your trade and trade your plan.
There we go. Plan your trades, trade your plan. Link to the Discord. Yeah, give me 1 second. I got that for you. There you go. So if you want to join that class right now, Coach Robert is live right now. He's probably going to go for about an hour. So make sure you join that. He's going to record it as well if you can't watch it live. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. Check out Coach Robert, Coach Hoop in the Discord. Coach Ray and Coach Vince at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central Time, and Dakota with Slow Markets tonight. I think he has a guest on tonight, so it should be a good one. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate you. If you haven't done so already, hit that thumbs up button on the way out, and we will see you all tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye.